A lot going on here. There's a lot going on here because here's the HA-2. HA-2. Love the HA-2. HA-1's big brother. There's HA-1. It's a slight. It's probably like a 1/4 inch thicker and maybe like a 1/2 inch wider. Okay. This is $1,200. So this is a severely different category of things. Viewing us today, here's the Emotiva Stealth. There's the Audio God NFB11. I got the Jotunheim over there. All my other things are now looking upon this glorious cube of aluminum. So glorious, in fact, that after this was loaned to me is when I started looking for a new laptop. Because I'm like, I need a laptop for like music. Just laptop's purpose is by the way, a Lenovo IdeaPad 510. Because someone asked the last video. All this thing does is it has a 1 terabyte drive. It holds all my FLAC. It's got a high def screen, a 1080p screen, and 14 inches. And it's like, oh, it matches the HA-1. This is a loaner. Same guy loaned me this. Loaned me the HT800S to review. So I'm not going to listen to them on it in this because that's where they're getting reviewed. But instead, we're going to play with some other things. So, what is this? You could call it a DAC. If you want to break it down to very simple terms, it's a DAC amp. Pre. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, that as it's got a DAC that has multiple inputs. It's got a preamp that'll do speakers or straight out line outs, and it's got headphone amp section built into it. That's, you know, one of the best ever. Ever. You ask people where their end goal is for, you know, I need a desk solution, here it is. However, I will say this, for a desk solution, it is girthy. This is a girthy solution. Gotta stand up for this review. Gotta stretch. Now, what have I got hooked up to it right now? I got the X100s. I've got my balanced level adapter going into my 600s. I've got line in coming from the FiO X1 here. I've got XLR outs to the Emotiva Airmotive 6s. I've got RCA outs going to the Stax 3100 bundle. And then I've got USB going to the laptop. And I haven't even come close to filling it all up. Look at it! There's so much stuff. Bluetooth antenna. You've got the same type of connections you do on the Emotiva Stealth there. USB optical, coaxial, AES, EBU. It doesn't have the what did that have? That had a BNC as well. It's heavy. I'm sorry. I just got to put this down for a second. All right, back up. I don't want to rest it on... Actually, can I rest it on his face? No, I don't want to bother. So, you've got trigger here, in and out for 12 volt, in case you want to hook this up to anything crazy. To have a trigger on a giant amplifier, like an Emotiva amp or any number of other amps. You've got the analog inputs, so it'll do XLR inputs. It does RCA inputs, it does RCA outputs, and XLR outputs. Now, these four things are bundled together in the control scheme. So, if you tell them to mute, they all mute. You can't tell the XLRs to mute and the RCAs to not mute. You sort of have to pick one or the other. So the fact that I'm using the RCAs for the Stax 3100 and the XLRs for the Airmotives means that when I hit mute, and mute's an option. You could either hit mute and have everything mute, or you could hit mute and have only the back stuff mute, and then the front headphone outputs still work fine. I'm going to apply a post-it note to the volume control so we could watch it spin via remote. Did it just get stuck on the post-it note? Is it not strong enough to bend a post-it note? Probably better that way. Here. So right now, these are playing. Yeah, comes a remote. Has an app that is literally just the remote. So, I mean, if you lose this or if it's inconvenient, you have the remote. It's everything is identical. Volume, Play, pause, next track. Here's your inputs. That's it. There's no other. I figured the app would have some other deeper functionality. For the money, you get an amazing headphone out. You get an amazing DAC. I mean, it's up there with Audio God level DAC, the Stealth DAC, the Jotunheim DAC. The headphone output is not actually that powerful from the 1/4 inch, but the XLRs is got good power. I'm not gonna list the specs because A, I don't remember them off the top of my head, and if you're thinking about spending $1,200, you should be doing research beyond this video. It makes my life easier. Because I have the X100s plugged in, the XLRs are disabled. So if I unplug these, now the relays click. Now the 600s are playing. I'll tell you a little. We'll get through the menu and everything. I'm just going to tell you one thing. When you hit volume, you get that little display that comes up and says 32.5, 31.5, 30, and that rotates. And if you turn the knob, that's getting real loud. You know, that changes there. And I was reading the manual, and the way that works. How can I do this? Just level like that. The way that works is that display of decibels is no digital on the volume thing, because a lot of people have issues with that, and you know, the purists are all analog volume, analog volume, analog volume, analog volume, which this is. So what that display is actually measuring the voltage after you've adjusted the pot, or after the motor has adjusted the pot, and it's giving you a rough estimate of how many decibels it is. So you know, hit that. All right, now it's negative. It's measuring 52, 48, 46. Isn't that cool how it's rotating? My father's old amps used to do that. So 29.5, it's measuring that. It's not saying, I'm not hitting this button, it's going, I'm going to go to 29 now. It's just turning randomly and then measuring to display the volume. I thought that was a cool feature, a cool touch on top of an already cool thing. You get that it spins? Do I have to keep that on there? No, good. So you have 8 sources. They're 9, yeah, that's a dimmer. So you got a dimmer for the front. You can shut it off, make it real bright. You can make it middle bright. I have a middle bright because the camera will usually get choked out if something's too bright. You can only have one of the outputs in the front playing at the same time. So 1/4 inch will override the XLR. Now, let's shift to the menus. Do I have to lift this up? I don't want to bend any of the things in the back of it either. To get to the, you turn the knob, here's your source, choose. You got RCA, which if I click OK, that's the X1 playing right there. Some 90s techno playing there. So you got RCA, XLR input, USB DAC input, mobile, which is I believe the front here. I don't have it. It says iPod, iPhone, iPad. So I'm assuming that's Apple only. I don't have an OTG cable to test with my Android phone, so we'll just look it up. Optical, coaxial, the Bluetooth with the antenna means the distance is amazing. Anywhere I am in this apartment, this will pick up the Bluetooth. And then the AES EBU, which is basically just XLR version of coaxial digital. So let's set it back to USB DAC. All right, now let's check menu. So there's your cool little display. You've got 100 hertz to 10,000 hertz, which is usually it. It's telling me we're on USB DAC, the bit rate. It's telling me that the headphone amplifier is on the high output, and it's telling me the volume, which is 28 dB negative. Press it. We get to choose 3 screens. We've got this one that is just information. It's the little information that was on top, now much bigger. So if that's boring to you, you go to Spectrum, or there's even a VU meter, which, as cool as that is, it's still not as cool as a real VU meter. But it's nice to see that, you know, that still, people still want that. I still want that in things. Why don't you have it? So we can leave it on that for now. Now let's go through the rest of the menus. You click it again. You get screen dimmer options, bright, dim, off. You get mute, preamp, output only, or mute all. Those are your 2 choices there. So if I set it to mute all, then everything mutes, front and back, which it is muted currently. If I set it to mute only preamp, These play, the speakers are not killing us right now. If I took the remote or the app, let's take the app. I say mute. So I've unmuted it, relay clicks. The headphones are still playing, and these are playing. Mute that again. So now the headphones are just playing. You got high gain or normal gain. Now watch this. Actually, I'll put the sticker back on. Now I have to put the sticker back on. So here's normal gain, right? It's playing the headphones. You could hear them. And I basically tried to use this on normal gain, and nothing I have, aside from a few IEMs, really gets enough of the go from normal gain. So you're going to end up using it on high. And if you go from normal to high, she'll auto-adjust the volume down so nothing blows up. Excellent. What are our other options? The output. You have a choice between fixed or variable out of the back. Now, since I'm using these powered monitors, if I want to control them with the volume knob, I have to have it on variable, which is what I have it on. If I were to include the DBX Go Rack, it'd probably be better, like the stacks here have a volume knob, the DBX Go Rack has a volume knob. You would set everything out fixed. By the way, my hand is being fucking crushed under this. I'm not gonna be able to bowl forever. You would set it to fixed, and then you would have just full signal out, and then the volume knob would only control the front. So I'm leaving it on high. Bypass, and that's it. That's literally it. You got this front, dim, mute setting, high gain, output in the back, and you're back to the forward. For a screened unit, a unit that has an app and a screen, it doesn't have many options. You can't really dig down deep and change. I thought it was going to have all sorts of maybe filter settings or even maybe a rudimentary EQ that you could just pick between 5. So none of that. None of that. That's why my house is a mess. The front's pretty simple. I mean, can we power button, which does kill the DAC, which I'm sort of like, the Jotunheim there did an excellent job where the DAC is a separate self-powered thing. So that as long as it's plugged in, that could be off, and it doesn't do this to Windows. Windows doesn't have a kitten when it disappears. This has a kitten when it disappears, which, if you remember from my mic review, there's a benefit to that because Windows will automatically select the previous default sound device. So if you buy this for your desk and you have something else, a surround sound receiver hooked up, you shut this off, the surround sound receiver takes over, and that plays your music. I'm playing with Wasapi, which is why Fubar is like specifically said, use this, only this. And it just disappeared and went, so that's why we're like that. We'll turn it on. Turn it on with the, can we turn it on with the app? See, tap the screen to reconnect. Okay. Can we not? Turn on Bluetooth, search for the OPPO HA-1. See, because it's off, the app is being itself. Maybe I can't. Well, let's turn it on. So once I do this, all right, so the app kicks back on. One of the best things, if I had to pick a feature that this does that I wish everything else did, it would be this. Hold on, let me hit no on this. No. Still playing. So now those are unmuted. These are still playing, so I'm gonna unplug these. Which is another, that's a negative before I get to the thing I want, is I wish you could pick, okay, I want front, okay, and I just want back, or I want both. And at least with the mute functionality, you could have just front and not rear, but when you unmute it, everything's playing. So again, if you have if you need to push this up louder and louder and louder for whatever you're powering externally, whatever you're feeding signal to externally, your headphones are gonna, if you leave them plugged in, they're gonna get that. They're gonna keep getting ramped up more and more and more, and you have to just be mindful of that. Also, the high-low gain does affect the output on the back, I believe. Hold on. It does not. Excellent. I could have sworn that was that did. But the high lowers the volume down again. So you want to see the best feature ever? So this is hooked up to the computer via USB. It's acting as a USB sound device. Next track. That's almost worth $1,200 right there. Pause. Pause. Why don't every device, the Q5 Pro, well, those don't have a next track. What else has remotes that I'm like freaked out about? There's a couple other like USB devices that just have next track, last track buttons on them. Because once you have a USB device, it doesn't have to just be an audio device. It could be a home theater remote control channel or any number of things. So this will actually function, and so will the app. The app will, yeah, you should definitely be reconnecting now. There you go. So I can play and pause with the app. Raise the volume.
Oh boy, here's my game. B&O's my middle name.
Could mute, which I have everything unplugged, but now the headphone section is still playing. So that's cool. That's cool. I like that. That's cool. Now I said in the Jotunheim video, I talk more about how balanced outputs are sort of my thing now. It's sort of my thing. We're sort of going steady, me and balanced outputs, and I'll explain it again. Regular headphone. It's 3 conductor. You get a positive for the left, a positive for the right, and then that ring there, this bottom one, that is the negative for both sides. So they share it. You know, it's a simpler design. However, if you separate the left entirely, ground and hot, and the right entirely, ground and hot, what that does is it doesn't share any voltages on any common grounds. You can get a little more separation, just a little bit more. And it's a noticeable amount, because the 600s here don't come with a balanced cable. You have to go out and special buy one. Anything that has 2 inputs can be converted, which is why I have all these wires that I've made out of. I have a video on my other channel going over the building of this box, which I screwed up because I had a metal plate, whatever. Point is, if you feed a headphone individually right and individually left through a balanced DAC amp, which the Jotunheim is, and this is, there's a slight gain. It's just the slightest gain. Things can open up and sound more separated. And now I'm obsessed with that. So when you plug in and it has the 4 pins, that's what's possible. I believe stacks internally, since they have, you know, well, they have to be. They just have to be. The internals of a stacks amp, even the cheap one here, is balanced. Although the inputs are RCA, and they probably, if I hooked up a contact meter to it, would show a shared ground on the contacts. But internally, it's trying to separate that out. Where was I? Katie Lang? Play. No. It all broke. Never mind. Go home. Okay, so now it's playing. Because it's muted. What's happening? Oh, I'm on coaxial. Alright. That makes perfect sense. So you have to be on the USB in for everything to function. Unmute. This is the end game for a lot of... I'd consider... If I sold everything there, the old XDA, the Arist, I gotta keep that for the tube, and then the OWN is so good. It would have to be those 3 would get replaced by this. And then I'd be okay. Everything would be fucking fine. The analog input is nice. You could just plug your player in. I could just switch. Now that's playing. Now obviously there's no DAC when I switch to the analog. It's just feeding the analog signals through the preamp, and I'm controlling it. Are you looking at it, by the way? Have you seen it? This is obviously thin, but this is just a slate piece. I don't need to buy this. This I could live with, although this was a gift, so that doesn't count. But if you have a HA-2, then you understand the OPPO mindset, the quality, and the precision of it. It's all here. I wish this did more internally. I wish the screen folded into a menu that was like, oh my god, look at all these settings and options. But it doesn't, but that's okay. I can live with it. I always saw this thing as like, oh my god, like, that's too complicated for me. If you're a severe audiophile, you could pop this in your living room. You could hook up to your whole damn stereo. This would replace your stereo preamp. You have one analog input, which is all you really need for your turntable. And then you would have all your digital inputs for CD transport and computer and Dreamcast. No, that's analog also. Damn. Can't get it now. I like this thing. I like it a lot. I could literally walk away right now and just be like, I'll pause that. Well, actually, switch back to PC, and then I can pause it. Can't pause my player over there. Want to be super cool with your phone? You can get a giant tablet. So I can power it down. So, okay, right there it tells you. If you want to use the app again, you've got to relaunch. You've got to turn it on and then relaunch the app. So, I mean, that's probably normal. Is this worth $1,200? Yes. Does it get very hot? Yes. I mean, I've only had it on now up here for probably 40 minutes. It's warm. It's way too warm to cover this. I wouldn't place anything on any part of this. It's a little cooler near the back. Does 4-pin XLR matter? Yes. Don't get obsessed about it. You know, 90% of headphones, 98.9% of headphones can't support it, or they just don't come with it. So you don't know. It's blissful ignorance we're talking about here. The Jotunheim's the cheapest way to get into that game. As far as I know, that's the cheapest balanced amp. And if you get the DAC that is also balanced, it's $500. So the addition of this is you get the remote control functionality, you get the screen, you get the... I want to say, okay, what sounds better is, I could hear the comments. I'm hearing them in the future right now. They're just, oh, what should I just get? Yes. If you can, yes. This is an amazingly accurate piece of equipment. And it's built well, and it has features. It's not wrapped in leather, though, and that's a negative. So the next revision of this OPPO, I want to see it wrapped entirely in a dead cow. Description links and that thing, and I don't have the link to the app. The drivers, you have to put drivers on, signed drivers for Windows 10, which there was a bit of an issue at some point when they updated Windows, and I had to drop it back. But 7 doesn't have a problem, 8 doesn't have a problem. Look at it. I shouldn't have to do a shit anything. It is a little bit deep, so if you're on a desk, this is only a 2-foot desk. And if I'm using any of the connectors in the back, that's about as far back as it'll go. So it doesn't leave you much in the way for a keyboard here. So you'd have to move it to the side. You have to have a much deeper desk. Those are all the negatives I could think of. It's heavy, it's hot, and it's expensive. But it performs. You know what else is heavy, hot, and expensive? A Ferrari. Boom.